Welcome back. So in the last video lesson, you learned what I mean by business pain that money follows and the fact that executives tend to only put focus on funding priorities. So in this lesson, you are going to learn tactics, an example, and an exercise to start executing that, to start finding business pain that money follows and that gets on the executives you're trying to sell to, gets on their radar. And it starts with a concept we call peel back the onion until you get to the core. Okay. And I use that synonymously, like I mentioned, with uncover the need behind the need. And what I mean by this is every time you're having a discovery conversation with your customer or your buyer, imagine they throw an onion at you. Okay. And your job is to peel back the surface level of those onions and get to the core of the problem. And the reason this is so important is most humans, when you ask about complex challenges that are going on in their business, tend to answer with either surface level answers, or instead of answering with challenges, they answer with desired solutions. Right? So you might say, tell me about your biggest sales effectiveness challenges. And they say, we really need sales training. Well, that's actually not a problem at all. That's a solution. And so that's why this technique is so important. It helps you get to the heart of the deal, find business pain that money follows, and get on the priority list of the decision maker that you're trying to sell to. Now, peeling back the onion like this is how you turn little problems into big problems, which get big paychecks and big deals. Okay, this is step one in starting to create urgency. There's still more you need to do to create urgency, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but this is the most fundamental piece. Okay, little problems get little dollars, big problems get big dollars, and uncovering the need behind the need is how you turn a little problem into a big problem that gets big dollars. So I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to give you some techniques to do this, and then we're going to close out this lesson with an exercise. So this is a real discovery call I had with one of my reps at Gong, probably 3 to 4 years or so. And it is a great example of turning a little problem that gets little dollars into a big problem that gets big dollars. And so in the room with us, we had a sales enablement manager, and then we had the SVP of sales and services. In other words, the person of power. And we started the call by asking, help us understand what motivated you to look into Gong. And notice that the sales enablement manager took over the conversation. He said, well, we need visibility into our sales conversations. Now, my question for you, and go ahead and write this down somewhere, is how much money is somebody willing to spend to solve the problem of we need visibility into our sales conversations for its own sake? Okay, the answer is $0. You can already see on the screen, I was a little too fast with my animations, but that has no value in solving for its own sake. And so we, of course, peeled back the onion and we said, well, what's driving you to crave visibility into your sales conversations? And he said, well, reps are struggling to sell to power, so we need to coach them up on that. Okay, so now we're starting to just reach the surface of what pain looks like. And so we continued this track of, I understand why you would want your reps to sell better to power, but like, what's driving that? What's actually going on? And he mentions, as a result of poor power selling skills, our sales cycle is 9 months, and we have it baked into our annual model where it should be 6 months. Now we're at a problem. We've gone from desired solution to problem. Now, I would still argue we're at a pretty small problem. Okay, typical mid-market organization is probably willing to spend around $50,000 to solve that problem for its own sake. Now, we didn't stop there, though. Of course, you have to use tactful language to continue peeling back the onion like we've done here. But what we followed up with is, this is going to sound really redundant, but you could prioritize anything right now, right? I'm sure there are a lot of problems and opportunities going on in your business, and you've chosen to solve the sales cycle issue. And so what is going on in your business that's driving you to put the focus and energy on that? And now notice that we have dug deep enough, we've peeled back enough layers that power took over the conversation. Now the SVP of sales and services is answering our questions because we have gotten above the power line in terms of what's a priority. And she said, well, 9-month sales cycles mean we have an 11-month cash cycle. Okay, so from the time we start a sales cycle to the time cash actually hits our bank, that cycle is 11 months because it takes us 9 months to actually run the sales cycle. And then when we close the contract, there's 60-day payment terms, 2 months. So it's taking us 11 months to actually collect cash. And of course, we continued this thread. She said that puts our cash position at risk, especially when you forecast our business 2 years out. And she said, if we don't reduce our cash cycle after we continued peeling the onion, we'll need to raise more capital and it will be highly dilutive. Okay, if we need to raise capital as a result of fixing a cash crunch like this, rather than stepping on the gas pedal to grow our business, that is a very expensive problem. And notice, again, this is just estimated, the willingness to spend money when we've gotten to the center of the onion is probably closer to the neighborhood of several 6 figures, in some cases, maybe even 7 figures. Okay, so we've taken a surface level desired solution. We uncovered a little bit to find an initial problem, which was a sales cycle. And then we continued to peel back the onion to the point where a senior executive really cared about it because it was causing cash flow issues for the company. It was causing cash position issues for the company, and it would be incredibly expensive. So the principle here is in almost every case, not every case, but probably 90-95% of cases, when you start a discovery session, the first answer your buyer gives you is almost always too surface level for you to really do anything with. And that's just because humans process things in this way, right? The first take at answering a question is not always going to be well defined. So it's your job to peel back the onion. And your tool, right, your knife for peeling back the onion and getting to the center of it is asking the question, why? But in most cases, you don't just want to outright say why, because it can be a little bit abrasive, right? So you want to find different ways to phrase it. So what's causing X to be a priority? What's driving you to prioritize that? What's that leading to that's making this a priority? For editing's sake, I'm fixing my laptop real quick because it's about to die and I got to plug it in. Okay, it looks like it's plugged back in. Okay, so asking why, but sometimes without saying the exact words why, is how you start to peel back the onion. Now, I want to give you an even more intelligent, sophisticated question that you can start asking to start peeling back the onion. I have tested probably dozens of questions to do this. And this one by far gets the best reactions almost every time. In the majority of markets, you can use this immediately. If you want, you can tweak it a little bit, but this one works great basically out of the box. And the question you can ask as soon as somebody's sharing a surface level challenge with you is ask them, what challenge is going on in your business that's driving this to be a priority? Okay, so write that down on a sticky note and use it on your next discovery call. What challenge is going on in your business that's driving that to be a priority? What did those conversations sound like internally that made you and your colleagues decide to prioritize this? What's actually going on? And what you'll find is that a lot of buyers will kind of chuckle when you ask them this question. They'll, give you a chuckle just like, huh. And that's because they're thinking about the train wreck in their business, right? You've uncovered the center of the onion and they're thinking about the original issue that's going on in the business that's driving them to act on solving this. So that is the technique. I've got a couple more things for you, and then we're going to close out for an exercise. The first thing is, how do you know when you've peeled the onion far enough, right? You could get into this never-ending peeling back the onion of, why does that matter? And why does that matter? And why does that matter? All the way to the point where you get back to, well, we need to increase shareholder value, which is way too high level. So how do you know when to stop? How do you know when you've peeled the onion back far enough? The answer to that is, you've gone far enough and you can stop if you are talking about a business problem that involves a suffering metric that your decision maker owns and cares about. Okay, that was kind of a convoluted sentence, so I want to make sure you understand it. you know you have peeled back the onion enough where what you are talking about is a problem that is leading to a metric that's suffering that your decision maker owns and cares about. So if you sell to VPs of sales, it might be close rates or deal size or sales cycle. If you sell to chief marketing officers, it might be the rate of pipeline generation or share of voice or something like that. If you sell to engineering teams, it might be time to market, time to getting new features to market. If you sell to HR teams, it might be employee attrition. Okay, so think about the decision maker you sell to. Is it VP of XYZ? What set of metrics do they care about that your product helps solve and move the needle on? That is generally when you've gone far enough with this technique. Okay, so we're going to close out this lesson with 2 exercises. That is how important this lesson was. We're actually going to do 2 of these, and I want you to do both before you move on. So exercise 1, again, you can find these in the exercise section, is what does this look like in your world, right? What's the need behind the need for your customers? I want you to start translating this concept into what it looks like in your selling environment. And what you'll see in this exercise is 3 columns. So in the first one, you're going to answer, what do customers typically share at the beginning of a discovery conversation that is surface level, right? It might be a surface level pain. It might be a symptom of a deeper problem, or they might even express it in terms of a desired solution rather than a problem at all. So write it down. What do customers typically share with or start sharing that you need to start to dig into and peel back the onion on? The second thing to answer is, what do you think will most often, and I realize this is going to be different for a lot of customers, but I just want you to start thinking about this. What do you think will most often be the need behind the need that the decision maker you're selling to actually cares about? In other words, what are you looking for? What do you think you're looking for? Is it attrition rates? Is it suffering close rates? Is it suffering pipeline generation, or any of the other examples I've given? And then the last one, if you haven't already answered it in the second, is what metric is suffering as a result of that problem that the decision maker you typically sell to cares about? Okay, so I want you to go through this exercise. If you're watching this course as part of a team in a business, then ideally you do this as a team or group exercise to get ideas from other people, to share your own ideas, and to align on the business problems you typically solve for customers. Now, once you've done that, exercise number 2 is to actually go act on this, go use this technique and do it twice. And so you can see there are a few different columns here. The second exercise is you're going to use the technique of uncovering the need behind the need. So in the first call, you're going to choose 2 upcoming discovery calls. You're going to write them down right here. Just name the call, right? What account or deal are you talking with? Write it right there. Use the peel back the onion technique live on the call, right? You can use the exact question that I recommended, or you can tweak it for your own style. And after the fact, after you've done this, maybe you even want to go watch your gong call or something like that, I want you to write down 2 things. Number 1, what question did you ask, right? When you were in the moment, how did you phrase your question? Write it down in this box or in this column for each of those 2 calls. And then self-assess. How did it go? What went well? What was the customer's response? And what will you improve next time to make it even more successful? And then finally, if you want, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 on how well you executed that. So this was a longer lesson than usual, but this is arguably one of the most important lessons in this entire course. If you need to, watch it a second time, make sure you do those exercises, and please, please, please go execute it a few times. It's gonna take some time to get the hang of this, to identify when you're talking about solutions versus surface level problems versus business pain that money actually follows. So go give it a try, and I will see you in the next lesson.